Well, hello. My name is Valerie Sutton, and welcome to the SignWriting Symposium 2016. Today we have presentation 62 by Steve Slevinski. Steve, you want to go ahead and tell us about your project?
Thanks, Val. I'd love to. This presentation is called SignPuddle 3 Front and Back. And I'm really excited to share this with everybody. One of the aims of SignPuddle 3 is to help connect the world of sign writers. There's people all over the world using SignPuddle online. This is a data visualization I made of the different sign languages and the countries those sign languages are used in. This is actually built into SignPuddle 3, so the map is kind of a really interesting feature to look at. SignPuddle 3 is built on the SignWriting stack, and this is just a list of technologies that we're using for sign writing. We start at the top with our formal sign writing, the way we write our signs. We have our symbol set, the ISWA 2010. We use regular expressions, use mainly JavaScript online. We have cascading style sheets for styling our graphics, which we have the scalar vector graphics for the two-dimensional arrangement. We have our TrueType fonts for the symbol images, and we try to support all the browsers for all of the operating systems as well. The SignPuddle online data. We've been collecting data in SignPuddle for about the past dozen years. The data has been in different kinds of formats, and we've had to update the information because it started with comma delimited data, then we went to XML, and then we went to character data, a couple different flavors of character data. And every time the data changed, we would update the data. Now we're using formal sign writing, which SignPuddle 2 does use formal sign writing. The thing is, the back end is actually an XML file for each of the individual dictionary puddles or the literature puddles. We are moving in SignPuddle 3 to an SQLite database, or a series of SQLite databases. So every night, the SignPuddle online data is converted from the SignPuddle 2 format to the SignPuddle 3 format. SignPuddle 3 is being actively developed. The data in SignPuddle 3 is primarily read-only. I will show you some of the data that we can get out of it. The SignPuddle online data is also available in SignMaker. So every night, the SignPuddle online data is converted into SignPuddle 3, and it's also imported into SignMaker. So that's a great tool that you're able to use. The SignMaker has a lot more, the functionality for searching by signs is available in SignMaker right now. SignPuddle 3 searching by signs, we're still working on, work in progress. SignPuddle 3 is the next iteration of SignPuddle Online, and it uses two separate pieces of software. It uses the front end for the regular users and the writers, and there's also a back end, which is for developers. So if a developer wanted to access the SignPuddle Online data, they wouldn't need to try to scrape information from the user interface. They could actually use an API and do HTTP requests and responses, get data in JSON, and some other flavors. The front end is based on formal sign writing. You can copy and paste with that. It has HTML, SVG, cascading style sheets, TrueType fonts, and the JavaScript. The SignPuddle 3 front end is what a regular user would use when they were writing or accessing the data. You can get to SignPuddle 3 development by going to signpuddle.org, or there's a direct link where SignPuddle 3 is actually available on signbank.org. SignPuddle 3 has a nice listing of flags for all the other countries that have Puddle and formal sign writing available. You can see the list right there. There's a link you can use to access the flags by country code, or what languages are available and what puddles are available in that. Right here, this is a list of for the US. So that link at the bottom would actually show you the puddles and the languages that were available in the US. You can use other country codes, whichever ones you want. You can get dictionaries by language code. The language code for American Sign Language is ASE. So in the link, we actually use the language code, which is ASE, and that is pointed to the standard dictionary that we have available for that particular sign language, whichever language code that you do use. In the SignPuddle 3, you can search for entries, and you can actually view the entries. Here we have a sign, and we also have an example sentence that goes along with that sign. That's in the American Sign Language Dictionary. That's actually entry 5292. The great thing about this is you can copy and paste, well, you can copy the signs using formal sign writing just by copying from the front-end user interface. All right, let's take a little bit of a look at the front end and the live. So let me pull up SignPuddle.com, has a link right to SignPuddle.org. SignPuddle.org, I'll go to the SignPuddle 3 preview. All right, I'm going to look at those flags. It's communicating with the server right now, pulls up the list. I'm going to go to the US, and it will show the puddles that are available in that language. I'm going to click on the dictionary, bring that up, excellent. And I can just push this button just to start seeing the signs. And you can see that we just start seeing all those entries that are in there. If you want to search for a specific sign, it's only available by spoken language right now. The sign language searching is available in the API, but not the front end yet. So let's just do hello. And we can find all the signs that have been indexed by hello. I'm going to search for one, an exact match. If I look at the signs, there's 2 entries. We have this first one, which is the cardinal number, and it has that example sentence. And there's another entry for 1, and that's the number nominal. And there's also a sentence to go along with that. I was saying you could copy and paste, so let's actually copy the sentence. So if I click above, drag to the bottom, then I can do a right-click and copy. Let me go back to SignPuddle.com. And to prove that I actually did copy that, I will erase everything that's in there right now and paste what I copied. So you can see that we have our sentence right there. All right, the front-end user interface for SignPuddle 3 is actively being developed. I'm working on the user security right now and mixing in the new sign maker. I also have the new sign text under development, so a lot of exciting things going on there. It's just a preview right now, so it's not as functional as it could be. We're still using SignPuddle 2 actively, and SignPuddle 3 should be available by the end of this year. I hope to be writing in the next few months. All right, now we also have the back end. The back end is strictly for developers. The front end actually does use the back end. So what it does is it allows me to help developers while helping myself as well. The SignPuddle 3 in the back end is available on SignPuddle.net. That is running the SignWriting Server, and it deals with HTTP resources, methods, responses. We get JSON data from it, we get formal sign writing, and we can get SVG with fonts or without the fonts. Yeah, it has tools for displaying and tools for searching. It's a shared repository of user data. We use methods, HTTP methods of get, put, post, and delete. It will include paging, may have rate limiting, and user security. And you can get data in the SVG, the JSON, or the FSW. The server is written and documented with something called API Blueprint. API Blueprint is available as a standard for API development. If you want to check out the webpage, it's apiblueprint.org. They have a lot of tooling available around that specification. The file that I have for the SignWriting Server is written in Markdown. It's actually called guide.md, which is the guide for the SignWriting Server written in Markdown. That Markdown is formatted in the API Blueprint specification, and then we have an automatic HTML guide that was generated from that. All right. So let's take a quick look at the SignPuddle.net. All right, and the main links that we have at the top here are the index, the guide, the examples. We can just drop out. We can run live examples. So let's take a quick look at the guide, and you'll see the different sections that the SignWriting Server can support. We have a server, we have SVG, we have regex, which is regular expressions, we have the world, we have the puddle, and we have the user. So for the server, there are several options that we can get from the server. And one is just this root, which is /, so signpuddle.com. Right now, I'm actually looking at this second one, which is /guide.html. You can see that up here in the URL, signpuddle.net /guide.html. There's also example.html, there's a run.html, and those files are also available in Markdown. If I go up here and change this HTML at the end to Markdown, you can see that plain text file that I was talking about. And this just tells you everything that the server responds to and everything that the server can do. All right. So that first group, server, that just does files from the server when that's some documentation. Next, over in the guide, we have the SVG. And there are two different types of SVG that are supported. There is just straight SVG with the text, or you can use SVG with a font. The font you can create on the client side as well as the server side, and the SVG font will actually have those characters in the data stream that require the font to display. That first one at the top, for just the SVG without the fonts, that is only available from the server. You can't really create that on the client, and that SVG does not need any fonts. It's very portable, and it's pure scalar vector graphics. Let's see, regular expressions. There are two commands you can do for regular expressions. You can give it a query string, or you can give it a formal SignWriting string, but tell it what kind of searching you want to do. Query strings are very complicated for searching, but they're pretty straightforward once you get used to them. Let me show you an example. If I was going to say signpuddle.net /regex the simplest query string is capital letter Q. And you would get back this response. It says here's how long it took to create that, and here's that regular expression that you can use to search for any formal SignWriting string. As long as you have access to a regular expression engine, you can use this. If you wanted to use something more QT, that would be sortable. So here is the regular expression that would find only sortable signs, because not all signs can be sorted properly. Well, they can. It just requires an optional prefix that you need to write. Let me go to a new tab for a second and go back to signpuddle.com. Right now, I'm just going to grab any sign. How about this sign right here. All right. I'll copy that. Now, there is another type of call you can make to the regular expressions. You can say regular expressions, I'm looking for the same base symbols for this formal sign writing string. And this returns 6 different regular expressions at the bottom in the results. And here's the query string that the server was able to create. This will find all signs that use the same base symbols as this sign, but not the exact same fill or the exact same rotation. If you wanted to get that kind of query string, rather than a lowercase s, it would be a capital S. And you'll see that our query string changed, and every symbol has a specific fill and rotation. Before there was those U's that stand for unknown. We don't know what we're looking for, so find them all. This right now, we have the specific fills and rotations, and you can see here's our regular expression statements that we would use. So in the regular expression group, those are the 2 functions that we have. And that is just a tool that you can use if you want to be able to search, and you can give it a query string if you know what you want, or you can give it any formal sign writing string with several flags. The flags and how they work are explained at the bottom here in the documentation. So this is something you can look at later and figure out. There is also the world, which is kind of fun. So you can get the entire world in SVG, and it will give you the shapes for all the countries. You can get a list of all the flags for the countries of the world that use SignPuddle. For the world, you can get a list of countries and languages and puddles that are available, and these are all just that same. You use SignPuddle.net. If you wanted to see the world in SVG, you would simply type in world SVG. And the server would send back this information. There's 169 different countries, and it's all available in JSON data. Of course, this isn't what the end user wants to see, so let's go to SignPuddle.com. Actually, I should have went to org. It's one click away, so that's nice. I'll go to SignPuddle.org, and I'll go back to the preview. And rather than clicking on that flags link, I'm going to actually click on the world link. This is actually Ubuntu, and I haven't used it before for this, but actually it did work. Excellent. And as you can see here, we have the world. And if we wanted to click on the United States, it would say, well, here's all the puddles that are available. And we could say, hey, let's go back to the dictionary. And then we can do our searching again. So in the guide, we have that world section, which has a lot of great information. It's a nice way to visualize what you're accessing. After the world, there is specific puddles we can access, and there are several functions. First of all, there's just signpuddle.net/puddle. Let's just try that out real quick. signpuddle.net/puddle. And I put a trailing slash on, which I do not need. All right, so it gives us back 136 different puddles. It tells us the code for each puddle. It gives us an icon, graphic, and a title. And it tells us what language it's in. So all of that is available as well. Language code, MDL. We can request all the puddles by a specific language. We can get information about a specific puddle. So what if I wanted to know about the American Sign Language Dictionary? That would be just /ASE, because that's our language code. And here's the information that would give us about the dictionary. We get the icon, when it was created, and its name. things like that. Every Puddle is its own individual SQLite 3 database. So let's say that you actually wanted to download the ASL dictionary. That's as simple as just saying puddle/db/ase, and you would be able to download that SQLite database with all of the signs that are in the dictionary. Then there's also some advanced searching where you can query with sort and off limits, and these are things that you'll need to play around with to actually understand what's going on. There are quite a few options. All of them are nicely explained. And I will show that in a bit too. And then there's the user, which will have more functions. Right now all you can do is get some user salt, and that's just required for some security reasons, which are still being worked on. All right, so that is the guide. Explains all those sections. Now for the API, I wrote a list of, I think it's close to 100 different API example calls. And that's available as a JSON file. So if you capital E example, and if you say example.json, you can actually access all of the API calls that are example calls to the API. It will tell you, give you a name of it, a brief description, and what the actual location or the URL that you'll need to access that from. Talking about how you create SVGs with padding and different things like that. This is the markdown. This is the JSON, which using curl on the Linux command line, I actually make live calls to the those examples, and I've written those in a document, again using API Blueprint. So if you want to see the examples, click on example, and then we'll go to SVG. So here are SVG. Here are the example calls that I made, and you can see here's the location, here's the request that I sent, and here's the response from the server. And it sent back an SVG with all of this. So if you want to look at the SVG examples, you can look at the regular expression examples. And each one of them, if you open up the request, you can see it's a description. Well, we're querying signs with symbols S1000 and S20500. And if you want to see the response, there's a response that it sent back. This would be particularly helpful. We can look at the world, but looking in the Puddle, there are lots of different ways we can search. And in the examples, I've documented each of the ways. So if you were interested in how to query, you could say, well, we're querying for this query string, and we're sorting it by the created date. And if you want to see the results, there were 6 results, and here's what those results will look like. So for developers that are using JavaScript and that can access an API, has really powerful examples. My favorite over here is the run. And for the run, I take all of those example API calls, and I made a page that will actually call those live. So all of these calls I'm going to show now are being live from the SignWriting server. So just to prove that it's there, you can say, get the salt. And so that's working. If you didn't want to use SignPuddle.net, there is also, let's see, HTTP. This should be the SW server.wikimediafoundationlabs.org, and this is a mirror site. And if I get the salt again, you can see that that salt value is changing, because I'm actually pulling from that the SignWriting server from Wikimedia Labs. Let's take a look at those SVG. Now the first thing I'll see is that there's this run all button. And for whatever section you open up, that will actually run all of those. I'm just going to do a couple individual first. If you can see, we don't have any response yet. That's because we haven't called it yet. If we wanted to call it, we could just click on this get button. And you'll see that it sent the request to the server. The server sends this back live because we're actually running these examples. If you wanted to see SVG for a colorized sign, you just click on that button, it would go out there, and it would send back. We have line-colored signs where you color the line and the fill with a colored background. That's what it would look like. So these examples will really help you understand how to call the server and what the things do and what they mean. At the end of this, since this is the SVG example, there's also SVG/font. There we go. So there's those two different ways to get the SVG, regular SVG, which has just scalar vector graphics and nothing else, and there's also the SVG font, which needs the TrueType fonts that we've developed. I'm going to be adding more and more. Let's just do this run all button real quick. And you can see that it did 47 tests, no failures, and it took 1.58 seconds. The examples for the Puddle, and that's how you can search the different Puddles. You can get listings for their specific language. Let's query the ASL dictionary for signs with 3 symbols. You can see that there is one result, and that's what it looks like. But that's not really what it looks like because that's just the formal sign writing. So if you wanted to see it, copy it, and it's just as easy as SignPuddle.com, and just request an SVG and give it that formal sign writing string. If you wanted to have more interaction, or the colorized string, my favorite is the -C, Z, X. Colorized zoom extensible. And that will make it as big as possible for the screen. Yeah, it is a work in progress, but the front end is coming along very nicely. I'm very excited because the new sign text is going to be available later this year that will integrate into the SignPuddle 3 front end. The back end, it's very developer friendly. I hope that people start accessing this. Like I say, it is only read-only right now. Later on, we'll be able to actually write. So to access and update the SignPuddle online data, we can either use the SignPuddle 3, or we could possibly use other tools that other people have created and have them access the SignPuddle.net API.
Very nice. Wonderful.
So, if anybody is interested in the SignWriting Server, there's lots of information to go check out. If anybody wants to comment on the API blueprint or the documentation, I would love to get some feedback. Yeah, and that is pretty much it.
Wow. I want to thank you, Steve, for providing the world with this foundation of sign writing software and source code. And, well, this is all the support I think a software developer will need. I hope, and probably so, to create their own software in sign writing. For example, last year, Steve presented a presentation on SignMaker 2015, which is actually only one of many small programs that Steve has developed. And just from those presentations last year, other software has now developed in this year. And so, and the same thing with sign text. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about that? The new standalone sign text that you're hoping to publish this year. Tell us about it.
Well, that is going to eventually be available right on SignPuddle.com.
Okay.
You can kind of see it working along right now.
Because you see SignMaker 2015, which one can access on signbank.org right now, and also obviously through the Symposium presentations and other methods like, as you just said. Where would you get the source code, for example, for the SignMaker 2015? Where would a software developer go for that, Steve?
For all of my source code is available on GitHub.
Okay, that's good.
So an easy place to go is you go to SignPuddle.com, and there is a little OctoCat link that points to GitHub.
Okay. And so that gives them that source code. But now, with the signed text, you're going to have similar kind of availability, aren't you?
Right. It's the new code is being able to use the SignWriting 2010 JavaScript library. That is, I'm building more and more functionality into that. And so the actual code for the new sign text will not be that much extra outside of the SignWriting 2010 JavaScript library, which is just a general purpose library when you're using SignWriting on the client side.
Okay. Well, you know, for those who are lay people like myself, we actually use SignMaker and sign text right now when we go to SignPuddle Online, don't we? In version 2, which is the standard that we're using at the moment. And when I want to go and write a sign, I go into SignPuddle, either signpuddle.org, I can access it, or I can go to signbank/SignPuddle, and I get to SignPuddle Online. And there are a bunch of flags and everything. And I click on the American flag in my case because I want to write some ASL. And it takes me to a section that shows me a dictionary and literature and an encyclopedia, different places. And let's say I go into the dictionary and I want to create a new sign in that dictionary because it isn't there. I look for it, I can't find it, so I want to write it. I click on an icon called SignMaker, and that little program that then pops up, it's actually not that little, is it? It's actually now a standalone program called SignMaker 2015. So you can actually access SignMaker in 2 places as a layperson wanting to write. We can actually go in and use it in SignPuddle.org online, or we can go into the standalone SignMaker 2015. Well, the same thing is happening with sign text. That's what I'm trying to get at. The SignMaker is for making individual signs for a dictionary, but the sign text is for creating literature, for writing sentences. So I assume that you can all hear me. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but anyway, so sign text is the way we do literature within SignPuddle Online right now. But Steve is creating a new version of sign text where we can create literature online just all by itself without going into SignPuddle. Isn't that true?
Right, and the techniques that I've been using have been steadily improving, and the making sign text were before. It was very complicated, and I had to really force the browser to do things it didn't want to do. Now with the new browser support specifically for the vertical writing mode, the code is becoming a lot easier, a lot cleaner, a lot simpler.
So does this mean that the new sign text that you're working on right now that will be available later this year in 2016, so you feel that it will be more sophisticated, maybe easier to use? What do you think?
It will be more sophisticated and easier to use, and it will also hook into the SignWriting Server, so you can access data from SignPuddle Online, and that will use that back end of SignPuddle 3, that signpuddle.net. So you'll be able to use the new sign text as just a standalone editor, or you'll be able to access an online dictionary.
Okay, so gosh, you know, this sounds like an enormous job or task for just one software developer like yourself, Steve. I don't know how you do it. You're absolutely brilliant. And Steve has provided us with an online tool, SignPuddle Online, that we use every day. But it is slowly going to become SignPuddle 3.0, which is the point of this presentation. But Steve is doing it incrementally. Isn't that right? And as you're developing SignPuddle 3, which is a brand new way of source coding it or programming it, we're getting these individual programs like SignMaker 2015, standalone, and now there's going to be, I guess, a SignText 2016. Is that right? Yeah.
Right, and these are not only standalone, but they're also able to be embedded in other applications and other websites.
Wow.
So with our standalone text editor of sign text, if you wanted to be able to write sign text using the drag and drop functionality of SignPuddle, you'll be able to add a sign text actually to whatever web application you are making.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Does that mean that?
Right, that's,
wow. Okay, go ahead.
no, please finish your thought.
No, I'm just trying to understand what you just told me. When you say that you can make it a part of the web page that you're working on, do you mean that's for people who are doing web design and they can embed the new sign text into a web page where people could then use the program on that web page? Is that what you mean?
Right. It's similar to what presentation 57 about building the sign language to spoken language corpora.
Mm-hmm, by
and
Alex.
They actually have SignMaker.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Do they? Yeah. They're using SignMaker 2015, aren't they? And they're putting that in there. How exciting.
Right. They're actually taking the actual code and embedding it in the web page, and the new sign text will be the same kind of thing.
That's by Alex Malman Becker, and that's presentation 57. Mm-hmm. And that then interlinks with your presentation on SignMaker 2015 last year. Wow. So they've embedded it there. So, gee, maybe I do web design. Maybe I can have fun putting some sign text into some of my web pages later. You'll have to teach me how.
Right. And that's one of the things that we're working on SignPuddle 3 right now, because there's also a SignPuddle 2. There was actually a SignPuddle 1.5, and then there was a SignPuddle 1.
I remember. Yeah, we had to start somewhere, didn't we, Steve?
Right, and when we were starting, we didn't have all these tools that we have available now. So we had to do it the hard way and the long way. Yeah. And I was getting some really complicated code, and it was getting a little bit intimidating. Yeah. And that's one of the design goals that I had with SignPuddle, is to try to get all of the smarts out of the software, because I could do it complicated in software, but I didn't want to do it complicated in software. No. So I tried to figure out, well, how can I make this simpler? How can I take all this knowledge that I have in SignPuddle and make something standalone? And that's where the formal sign writing came from eventually, and all these techniques that we have around using formal sign writing. And that's one of the things I really love about this API and SignPuddle 3 and all these tools that we have, is it developers hit the ground running, and they're able to do some amazing things that they wouldn't be able to do, that I would have only been able to dream about when we first started over a decade ago.
Wow. Well, it's a tribute to you and all the hard work you've done over all these years, and also to all of the other developers in the world who have improved the web browsers. For example, in the old days, web browsers were not able to show text that went down in vertical columns. But recently, Firefox and then Chrome and now Safari, they seem to be able to display our vertical writing. And they didn't do that before. Isn't that right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So that means we also are dependent upon the other developers in the world who have made everything better. So it is a remarkable thing to see how every technology is just expanding, because we're working with each other on making it better and better. So Steve, what do you project next? Your next project is the Sign Text 2016? Is that what's coming out next?
Yeah, my next, the project next should actually be the Sutton signwriting fonts. I need to do some work on the fonts and fix up some of the images, fix a baseline image, and coordinate also with Unicode, which I'll be going to the UTC meeting in about a week and a half.
That's exciting.
And after I get back, after I get back, I'll work on the fonts, and I'll work on the JavaScript library, and then the new sign text will be created
from that. Wow. Well, I'm really looking forward to this, and thank you for working on the fonts. For those who are new to this idea, there's something called TrueType, but over the years, TrueType changed, at least from my perspective as a not a programmer. I once had a program called Fontographer, and there's FontLab and other different programs, and I struggled to try to create some fonts way back in the 80s, actually, the 1980s. And now Steve has been able to develop TrueType fonts that are directly web-based, and you did an amazing job, but now you're even trying to improve it even further, aren't you, with Unicode, etc.
Right. Yeah, it should be a little bit smaller. It should be a bit faster, and there's some images I need to clean up, and a couple of other issues with the baseline, but it's all working out really nice.
Well, for all of those who use sign writing every day, like myself and others, we are lucky. We have been handed these tools that in prior generations never existed. So we're grateful to you, Steve, for developing this. Is there anything more that you'd like to tell us?
I think that covers everything. Like I said, the developer API, I think it's really nice, really sweet. If you want to check that out and give me some feedback, I would be happy to hear from anybody.
Yes, and actually for software developers out there, please give Steve feedback. You know, it helps all of us because every idea is valuable. And we can't work alone, and we do. That's what's so interesting. All of us do work alone behind our computers, but without the interaction, how do we know if it's going to work or not? So I have valued every single feedback we've gotten, and both Steve and I feel that way. So please contact us anytime. And now I'd like to tell you that in like 45 minutes, I guess, we're going to have presentation 63. And it's from Peru. It's a very unusual presentation because I didn't even know about this project until we were working with somebody else on the SignWriting Symposium 2016 preparation. And I found out that there was a new project at a university in Lima, Peru. They wished to create a dictionary of Peruvian Sign Language in a computer, like a linguistic database, a little bit like SignType, which was a presentation that we had earlier in this symposium on day 1 by Dr. Rachel Channon. It's presentation 54. You can take a look at that if you'd like. And but this new presentation coming up is going to be fascinating. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's valuable. Let me just make sure that I have. It's by Dr. Miguel Rodriguez Mondoniedo. And we're looking forward to hearing all about it because it's a brand new project. So please check back for presentation 63. And if you wonder how to get there, go to signwriting.org and scroll down and you will find presentation 63 right on the front page of our website. And just click on the link and it will take you to YouTube and you can watch it live. Thank you very much, Steve, for this live presentation. And we look forward to your software in the future. And have a great time at the Unicode Technical Committee meeting next week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.